painting colors to plaster and plaster and become fixed as the painting the plaster dries the horses
Fresco.
horse horse fresco is on the ceiling of the Royal Respiration Hall and the Respiration Hall
Reception.
reception hall and the elephant fresco is on
Fresco.
a wall. Fresco.
Ma'am, I am so surprised that the colors are so bright and clear. There must have been some restoration on those over the years.
I believe there has been, yes.
Yes,
Because
yes.
actually, I might not have included some of the pictures of the ones that are the older ones, but these, at first we thought, wow, and then we thought realistically they must have been redone. Because this was on the lower part of the building, and so that would have been the first one, the first area built in the 13th century. So yes, a plastered wall plaster is a mixture of a liquid and Miss Sue, what do they use to mix that with? Some kind of
Probably some kind of almost like clay, or because when you put up plaster, it is a bit like when it dries, it's like clay on the walls.
But yes, and that's a great explanation. When they mix it, it's very wet, and they use a tool to spread it on the wall, and then they really quickly paint in that, and then that way when the plaster dries, this coating they put on the wall, the paint colors, what the word is penetrate on the third line, penetrate, that means to go inside. So the paint goes inside that wet plaster and kind of becomes part of the plaster instead of just painting on top of a dry wall. That's it. Fresco is a different method of painting. It's very common in some parts of Southern Europe. There's very old frescoes in some of the old buildings there. But can you imagine standing on a ladder with your head upside down, painting those horses? There was a couple of frescoes on the ceiling that were much more detailed, but they hadn't been restored. So I took pictures of them, but I didn't include them here because I thought that was a much better picture. But I love the one with the elephant. There's so much detail there. And that was just, that was just how they designed their walls. Many of the walls were painted like that, painted by hand, where today, if you want decorations on their walls, people just put up a roll of wallpaper that they buy at the grocery store, they buy at the store and put it up. So actually, if you look down below on the bottom, it's not as bright on the elephant one. So perhaps that one hasn't been completely updated yet. See how there's not much bright color down there? Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, let's go to Sartak.
Yes, ma'am.
Read.
Stained glass and inlaid glass were used throughout the palace. What do you think it would be like to have a bedroom with stained glass walls? Would you wake up early when the sun comes up?
Oh, sorry that the left-hand picture didn't show up well. It's supposed to show where you see those those blocks of glass, colored glass. Then there's a window in there. The other side of that window had that glass on it also. So I must have done some late night mistakes in putting together the slide.
Yeah,
And this,
but it is clear, ma'am. It is clear. Like we can see, because of the sun, these glasses are very much visible, even in the darkness.
Yep. That's why I wondered if the sun comes through in the morning early, if it would wake you up earlier. sun comes into your room. The picture, the small picture of the horse and the rabbit, that's inlaid glass. So someone has cut those little, every piece for every color that you see, someone has cut that piece of glass to fit into there.
Wow.
And these both, there's one room in the palace, or maybe more than one room, that was made entirely of cut pieces of mirror. So it was everything reflected back to you. And I can see in here there's cut pieces of mirror behind those blue flowers, behind the horse. But just think of the person that sits there all day and cuts those little tiny pieces.
Mm-hmm.
With what kind of tools would they use way back then before electricity? It's hard to imagine.
What year do you suppose this was made?
This was a couple floors up, I believe. So I don't know, 15th century, 16th, I'm not sure. There's some kind of writing, it looks like, across the top.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next slide.
Oh, the design.
Hey, Manav, would you like to read, Manav?
Ma'am, I will read after this. Okay, I will read this.
Read this is small
What-
Mano. Read.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
yes. Looking through the windows, you can see that trees trunks have been added to help support to ceiling
Ceiling.
in the ceiling in the other room, which has more beautiful
Pillars.
pillars.
So the pillars are what supports the roof, right? Or the ceiling. So look through the one on the left, and can you see the tree trunks in that other one?
Yes.
So that's a part of the palace that obviously was not safe. They were afraid the ceiling would fall in. So they put those tree trunks in there just to hold it up until it can be restored. I will tell you that in America, if there was a place like this, they would not allow people to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Afraid something would happen, someone would get hurt, and then somebody would sue someone, there'd be some legal issue. And so instead of worrying about that happening, they would close the building. So we felt really lucky to be able to get into this beautiful building. And obviously the government officials felt that these tree trunks were strong enough to hold up the ceiling. And underneath these beautiful pillars, like in the center picture, and then the one on the left is just a close up, there's very likely just a tree trunk under there. There could be, and then they just built around it to make the beautiful column.
Wow.
I thought that was interesting because I've never been in a beautiful place like that has kind of like homemade repairs, and they worked. They just haven't gotten around to putting up the mosaic, new mosaics over the top of them. But these are all made of cut glass in this other room.
Actually, you people were allowed to go inside?
Yes, we walked around.
Oh,
Like I said, it didn't seem like a normal palace where you pay to get a ticket to go in and there's crowds of people. We were the only ones in there, this group of 14 women.
mm-hmm.
It's up this little tiny, really small road, and then you have to walk up. And so I guess not many people come there. I read a review online and someone said, it's falling down, don't bother going there. And I thought, I was just there last November and it was beautiful. And obviously they have poles, if they thought it wasn't safe, they would have closed that room off, right? So they've done what they needed to do, put the tree trunks or the poles in there. And so I'm sorry, when I read that article online, I just thought, I wish I could tell them to take that down because it's not falling down and it's beautiful and it's worth it to go there. But that's what someone wrote. I love these because this middle pillar, it just has all these different levels. The herringbone ones were just kind of straight up and down, but these have different levels. You can see there's an elephant in glass inlay on the very top of that one. And see the arches in the background? There were lots and lots of those fancy arches all throughout the palace. Okay, next slide.
Okay. Let's see, Daksh, can you, well, let's see. Can you read that, please?
Okay, so students, this is where I was still working in the middle of the night. So there's supposed to be more here. So, sir, can you just, this is still the old palace. I'll just tell you really quickly because I'll update this, but you can see the old parts of the palace, the wall, because it was also a fort. But again, this was the middle of the night and I hadn't finished, but let's keep going further if we have time, because there is more that I completed. So that old palace was the home of the royal family from when they moved to Dungapur until the early 20th century. And at that time, they moved out of that old building. Remember, it said they'd moved out of it, and nobody lives there anymore, so it's just fallen into disrepair. So this Uday Bilis Palace, the white building there, is where they moved to after they left that old palace. They moved here on this lake. That white building is the hotel that we stayed in. It's a former palace. Most of the places we stayed on this trip were former palaces. So it's a former palace. It was just stunning. I've never stayed in a place that beautiful before. So anyway, that's how they play together. That was the old palace. And then in the early 20th century, they moved into this palace. So we're still in Dungapur, but we're probably only a mile or two away from that other palace. Okay, so whoever's reading next.
Well, Daksh, you haven't had a chance to read yet. So if you're still there, can you do that?
Daksh, are you there? Daksh?
I'm not sure
Sir,
if
how to
after that, let's go to Maitri.
He's
If you're
on,
still there.
he said.
Oh, is he on?
Yeah, Daksh, can you read? He's eating something.
Okay. So the next person in line until Daksh gets ready is Maitri.
Yes, ma'am. Uday Bilas Palace is a former.
Oh, you're muted.
Sorry for that. It has been turned into a 5-star hotel. It sits between the shore of Gaib Sagar Lake on one side and a private reserve forest on the other. The artificial lake was built in 1428 as a way to collect water during the rainy season for use in dry season. Although the royal family owns the lake, a part of the lakeshore away from Udaibilas Palace is open to the public. The huge reservoir supplies water to the residents of Dungarpur town. Udaibilas Palace dates from the mid-19th century. The former palace holds both the Udaibilas Palace Hotel and the private residence of the royal family of Dungarpur.
Did you see that word lakeshore is another compound word?
Mm.
Instead of just saying on the shore, it's lakeshore.
Mhm.
Okay, next slide. We might have time for another slide before it's time to leave for the day.
Yes, we
And
have
it's
three minutes we have.
okay, Unnati, it's your turn.
The lakeside facade of the palace. View of Vijay Rajeshwar Temple in Gaya. Sagar Lake from the hug doorway that
Huge
was
doorway.
very near by the hotel room.
So in the first bullet point, the word that starts with the letter F is pronounced facade. That's kind of a hard one because it looks like facade.
Yeah.
Facade means the front of something, the front side of the palace. the palace that goes against the lake. And that right behind me in the picture is that another little island that was built in that lake. You'll see pictures of that.
I'm wondering what's on the island that's in the lake.
We will come to that.
Oh,
Next slide.
Wow.
There it is.
okay. The next person is Viraj, if he's able, but I don't think he went to dinner. So let's go back to Adwoot.
Oh, he's still in the car.
Yeah, he's traveling.
Viraj, do you want to talk?
What, ma'am?
Would
Do
you
you want
like to read? Can you read this?
Yes, ma'am. The water level of Gahib Sagar Lake was too low for the rowboat to take us to Vijay
Rajeshwar.
Rajeshwar temple. We should have had to walk the last part of the quick trip in a couple inches of water and mud. We did see one of the hotel workers go out there to pray.
So
The island has several Chatri style pavilions, and in the middle is a small temple with statues of Shiva and his consort Parvati.
Parvati.
The temple was dedicated 100.
Dedicated.
supposed to be 100 years ago. I'll have to be a little more careful about my margins. The is it Chatri style? That means an open, elevated, dome-shaped pavilion. So that's all these little domes that are all around. And there's the big center pavilion. And you can see on the right-hand side of the little island, you can see little bits of light brown grass in the water right next to the pavilion, right there. That's how low it was because grass was growing up. And just next to it is where there's little steps that we were supposed to walk up to get into it. But most hotel guests get to go out there, at different times of the year, but we just didn't get to. But I could look out my bedroom and see that. It was really, really wonderful. I think that's it for our time today, but
Yes.
I will continue working on this slideshow, and we're going to do something different tomorrow, it sounds like, but I can have this ready for some more conversation next week.
Yes, ma'am.
Sounds great.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you so
everybody.
much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day, ma'am.
You
Have
as
a
well.
good evening.
Everybody.
Bye, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, ma'am. Bye, sir.
Sir, Sajid sir. Sir.
Bye bye. Good night.
Bye.